Good afternoon, everyone. If you could settle down, then we can begin. As you will remember, last week I asked you to listen to someone explaining how to make a presentation.
Yeah, so why did we have to do that again?
Because, as students of medicine, quite a large percentage of you will be involved in research at some point in the future. Doing research is pointless unless you are going to share it with the wider scientific community. Some of you may write articles, but for most of you the first step will be presenting a poster, which in many aspects is like a summary of an article.
But how do we go about doing that? We haven't ever had to do anything similar in our degree course.
That's exactly why you are doing this course on English for academic purposes. I suggest we get down to it and make a start. When reflecting on how to prepare your poster, I suggest you consult the internet, as you will find numerous sites dedicated to the theme. Today, I will just give you some basic pointers.
Sorry? What do you mean?
Some basic tips on how to do it. For example, I think the acronym WHO, is a very good starting point.
Pardon? Who is WHO?
WHO should remind you that you will need to include the what, the how, and the outcomes of your investigation. To put it another way, the normal format includes very concise sections with an initial description of the cornerstone or focus of the study, perhaps including the basic hypotheses, the methodology used, what's new, and so on. Then, in another part, you usually detail the methods used and information about your sample, the criteria used to constitute it, and the statistical processing it was subjected to. These usually take the form of statements rather than argumentation.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you don't have much space on a poster, so you provide an account of what you did and not necessarily all the argumentation or reasoning behind it. That's why, generally, you'll be present to provide the logical justification of your work. This could be during a formal presentation of your poster or, just as frequently, simply by being there, hopefully to reply to all the questions you will be asked.
Why do you say hopefully?
Realistically, you have to remember that you are competing for attention with all the others who are presenting posters.
But that's not going to be easy.
No, and there are factors other than just your text.
Like what?
Of course, the visual presentation of the text, for example, how you are dressed, your posture, the way you speak. These features were already dealt with to some extent in the listening comprehension about making presentations. Now, let's get back to WHO. The final part concerns the outcomes, or the results of your study. Figures and tables are a very space-economical technique to disseminate the conclusions of your work. Actually, from a distance, the appearance of a typical poster will be of tables and figures interspersed with blocks of text.
Excuse me, why from a distance?
Don't forget that typically your poster will be attached to a wall or some other structure, and people will be standing looking at it, perhaps from a distance of 2 or 3 meters. So you have to bear this in mind when deciding on headings and font sizes. Although the figures are important, people still need to be able to read your explanation of the most relevant results obtained from the analysis of your data. Frequently, this component is subdivided into a statement of what the investigation found and then the importance of those findings. A robust study and its presentation will show a clear link between the initial hypothesis or hypotheses and the outcome or outcomes. It will be even better if there is a significant element of novelty to your results.
You mean in the techniques used?
Sometimes they are important, but what I'm really referring to is that your study has found something that nobody else has. I hope you have found what you were looking for. Please put the phone away. This is the way that science slowly moves forward, providing, of course, that your work is reproducible. Don't forget the recent case of the Nobel Prize winner, Frances Arnold, who has retracted her recent study on enzymes because nobody else has been able to reproduce her work and reach the same findings. When stating the findings, people sometimes also make a brief mention of any limitations in their study and/or possible directions for future studies to follow.
You said earlier that a poster may be compared with a summary of an article. Does that mean we have to include a bibliography?
Good question. Because of the lack of space, normally only key references will be stated on the poster. Now, like a poster where space is valuable and must be used effectively, so too is our time. I think you've been listening to me for long enough. I'd like to start a number of practical activities with you now related to designing and writing the text for a poster.